Before we continue with this story that promises to be unforgettable, leave your super like. That helps us tremendously to keep creating more stories like this, full of courage, suspense, and emotion. And of course, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because at Wildlife Chronicles, every story has a soul, and every animal has a legend that deserves to be told. The truck appeared in the middle of the fog, raising dust over the frozen ground of dawn. The ranch stood in silence, as if the trees and animals sensed that something important was about to happen. Jack Miller stood by the barn, arms crossed and brow furrowed. It had been weeks since he'd slept peacefully. The wolves had returned, more aggressive, bolder. But what really worried him didn't have thin legs or slanted eyes. What kept him awake at night, what made him spend a fortune and cross half the world, was bigger, stronger, and it had already tasted blood. When the driver got out of the truck, he barely nodded. He didn't say a word. He walked to the back and lowered the metal gate with a dry crash. Inside the cage, two figures stood in silence. They didn't move, didn't bark, just watched. First one came down, enormous, gray fur, muscular, with a serene but firm expression. Then the other, slightly darker, with more aggressive eyes, alert like a soldier in a war zone. When they touched the ground, there was no tension. There was respect. The German shepherds, old companions of the ranch, watched from a distance without approaching. Not from fear, but because they knew something had changed. Jack approached slowly, didn't extend his hand, just looked at them. He knew what he had in front of him. Two Turkish Kangals, considered the best guardian dogs in the world, bred for generations to protect flocks from wolves, jackals, and bears. Buying them wasn't easy, importing them even less. But he had no choice. He had lost 23 sheep in less than 2 months. One of his cows appeared with torn ribs. And even one of his German shepherds had disappeared after a full moon night. What roamed his property wasn't normal. Aslan, Baran, he said in a low voice, giving them names in that instant. From today, this is your land. The dogs didn't respond with enthusiasm, didn't seek caresses, just walked through the terrain with confident steps, sniffing the air, recognizing the new territory. Aslan, the bigger one, stopped in front of the sheep pen. He observed in silence, as if counting them one by one. Baran approached the barn and barked once. A deep bark, low, that silenced even the wind. Jack frowned. It had been a long time since he'd heard a bark that gave him chills. Eli, Jack's son, ran out of the house with his boots poorly tied and eyes lit with curiosity. He stopped seeing the new dogs. He walked slowly toward them. The German shepherds watched nervously from the porch. Baran looked at him intensely but didn't move. Aslan, on the other hand, approached slowly, firm, placed his great head under the boy's hand. Eli caressed him gently, and in that gesture, a silent pact was sealed between the two. Meanwhile, a few meters away, beyond the broken fence, on the line where the forest becomes shadow, something moved. Two dark eyes watched. They weren't wolf eyes. They were bigger, more ancient. The forest kept a secret. And that morning, with the Kangals' arrival, something in the mountains stirred. Jack didn't know it yet, but he had brought more than strength. He had brought guardians with souls, soldiers of a silent war. And from that night on, no sound would be ignored. No track taken lightly. And you, what city and country are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. We want to know where our Wildlife Chronicles family is spread across the world. Your comment helps us reach more people who love these incredible stories. The first night was tense. The wolves that used to howl in the distance stayed silent, as if something was holding them back. But when the second night fell and the moon rose round over the snowy hills, the howls began again. They weren't many, 4, maybe 5. They moved like shadows at the forest's edge, challenging, provoking. Aslan didn't respond with barks. He just stood up and walked toward the fence. Baran followed him with head low and tense muscles. They knew they were close. Jack watched them from the window with a shotgun on the table. He had no intention of shooting. He wanted to see what these two Turkish giants were capable of. The German shepherds no longer approached the fence since the last attacks. One still limped, the other slept restlessly. But Aslan and Baran were different. They seemed to wait for the exact moment. They weren't noise dogs. They were war dogs. Then a dry crack was heard. A sheep bleated loudly. Then silence. Aslan launched without a single command. Baran went behind like a gray arrow that cut the darkness. What occurred in the following minutes was fast and brutal. The wolves had jumped the back fence looking for easy prey. But they didn't find fear, they found resistance. Aslan rammed the first one like a bull. The wolf didn't even have time to turn. Baran launched at another, straight for the neck. The others backed away, seeing the reaction. It wasn't a fight. It was a lesson. The Kangals didn't bark, didn't play. They attacked with precision, with strength, with contained rage. Jack barely managed to see the bodies roll in the snow before everything went calm again. 2 wolves were left wounded, fleeing to the forest with low laments. One didn't get up. Aslan stood over it, in silence, watching the trees, making sure no one else remained. Baran walked from one side of the pen to the other, marking the territory with deep growls. The air was charged. The ranch animals didn't move. Not the sheep, not the horses. Everyone knew something important had happened. The next day, Jack found the tracks. Not just from wolves, bigger, more separated, heavier. They headed to the river, crossed the back part of the terrain, and disappeared among the trees. Jack crouched down, passed his fingers over one of them, and sighed. It wasn't just wolves anymore. He knew it. Those marks didn't lie. There was something else beyond the forest. Ele saw the blood on the snow and asked if the dogs were okay. Jack didn't answer, just hugged him tight, ruffled his hair, and told him to get water for the Kangals. The boy ran off, but not without first looking toward the forest. He knew that wasn't over. He felt the worst hadn't arrived yet. That night, while fire burned under the chimney, Aslan and Baran rested near the door. One on each side. Wounded, yes, but upright. Eli sat between them with a blanket over his shoulders. No one said anything, but everyone knew the ranch had changed, and the true guardians had taken control. The impact was brutal. Baran launched like lightning, straight at the beast's flank, sinking his fangs with force that would have brought down any wolf. But the bear wasn't just any prey. It turned violently, releasing a swipe that cut the air like a sword. Baran was thrown several meters, rolling over the snow. Aslan didn't stop. He ran with head low, ramming the animal from the side with a growl that made the ground tremble. The bear roared, a cavernous sound that seemed to come from the mountain's very heart. Jack arrived at the barn with a shotgun in his hands but froze. The scene before him was fiercer than anything he'd imagined. A brown giant, covered in ice and dirt, fighting to the death against 2 gray demons, emerged from Anatolia's heart. Aslan positioned himself in front of the bear, circling, waiting for the right moment. Baran, limping, returned to the fight without hesitation. No fear in his eyes, only fury and duty. The bear backed up a few steps, confused. It didn't understand what it was facing. It had brought down fences, killed animals, scared away dogs. But this was different. These weren't ordinary guardians. They were fighters. They were walls of flesh and muscle. Baran launched again, straight at the hind leg, seeking to immobilize. Aslan rose on 2 legs and bit the monster's neck. The bear roared and shook like a maddened bull. The fight was long, painful, real. Blood on snow, growls, swipes, bites. Each bear blow was a hammer, each Kangal attack a precise arrow. Eli from the window watched everything with eyes overflowing with tears. He wanted to run to them, scream, do something, but was frozen. Not from cold, from fear of losing his heroes. Finally, Aslan achieved the unthinkable. With a violent turn, he launched onto the bear's back, biting with all the strength he had. The bear fell sideways, roaring desperately. Baran took advantage of the moment and held one of the legs, immobilizing it. The monster rolled, raising snow and mud, but couldn't shake them off. For the first time, it was losing. Jack aimed with the shotgun but didn't shoot. He knew interfering could mean hurting the dogs. And besides, something inside him said he shouldn't interrupt. That wasn't just a fight for survival. It was an ancestral duel between predator and protector, between chaos and order. And the bear, wounded, bleeding from neck and back, let out a final roar before backing away. It gave a clumsy turn and launched toward the forest's darkness, leaving a red trail on the snow. Aslan and Baran didn't pursue it. They stayed still, panting, covered in blood and mud. But standing, alive, victorious. Jack dropped the shotgun to the ground, walked to the dogs with wet eyes, knelt beside them and whispered something not even the wind wanted to repeat. Eli ran out of the house and threw himself onto Baran, hugging him hard. The dog didn't move, just breath deep, slow, like someone who has fulfilled their destiny. The next morning arrived as if nothing had happened. The sun rose timid over the snowy mountains, and the frozen breeze brought the smell of wet earth and dry blood. The snow, which before covered the ranch with white purity, was now stained red, with tracks, with marks of struggle. Everything was in silence. Not just any silence, but the kind that remains after a battle. A silence that weighs. Jack went out early with the shotgun hanging on his back, but without intention of using it. He walked slowly through the terrain, reviewing with his eyes every corner of the scene. He found pieces of broken wood, claw marks on the ground, and dark stains leading to the forest. The bear's tracks ended there. It didn't return. Maybe it never would. Aslan and Baran lay under the barn's eaves, exhausted. They breathed with difficulty but were alert. Their bodies were a map of wounds. Cuts on the back, bites on the paws, scratches on the neck. Jack crouched in front of them, put his hand on Aslan's chest, who looked at him with those steel-melted eyes. Then he caressed Baran's head, who despite the pain moved his tail once. No need to say more. Eli came out shortly after with a bucket of warm water and a towel. He sat between the two dogs and began cleaning their wounds with trembling but determined hands. He didn't speak, just did it, as if he knew that what those two giants had done couldn't be paid with words. While he passed the towel over the dry blood, he whispered phrases only they understood. Baran rested his head on his leg. Aslan closed his eyes. For the first time since they arrived, they rested truly. The veterinarian arrived before noon, warned by radio. He got out of his truck with an urgent expression, but seeing the dogs, his face changed. He knelt with respect as if before fallen soldiers. He examined each wound carefully, applied medicines, stitched what was necessary. He didn't say much, except one phrase that stayed hanging in the air. These dogs don't fight by instinct. They fight for what they love. That same afternoon, the news began spreading like dry fire among neighboring ranches. First, it was a cowboy from the South Ranch, then an old man passing on horseback. By nightfall, everyone knew. The Millers had two dogs that had faced a grizzly bear and made it retreat. Some arrived in trucks, others on foot. They brought meat, blankets, caresses. They came to see them with their own eyes. They wanted to know if it was true. They wanted to look at those guardians who had done what no man had dared to do. Jack didn't talk much, just let them see. Aslan observed in silence. Baran, although in pain, stood when someone approached. They weren't dogs seeking fame. They were protectors. And respect was mutual. That night, for the first time in a long time, the ranch slept in peace. No howls, no fear, just the creak of old wood. The winds blow, and two enormous shadows lying in front of the barn, watchful, calm, as if they knew the battle had ended, but the legend was just beginning. And so ends the story of Aslan and Baran, two dogs who not only protected a ranch, they protected a legacy, a family, and a land. Because sometimes true courage doesn't roar. It just walks in silence, watches, and when the hour comes, gives everything. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or simply made you admire these incredible animals even more, leave your super like. Share this video with those who love stories of loyalty and bravery. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, what city and country are you from? We want to know where our Wildlife Chronicles family is. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next stories. Because here, each tale has soul and each animal, a legend that deserves to be told.